Hello my friends, welcome to the third part of this Cosentino project breakdown. In this one, I'm going to be speaking about the lighting and a little bit of the animation. So to begin with, I have the first shot of this project and I thought it was a nice one to begin with because it has quite a bit of lighting happening. There's a lot of stuff that's happening at different stages because if you remember, this is animated and it's coming from darkness to light, and we are actually changing the camera in the middle of the animation, so we would be seeing this. But just so you can see the whole process and how I light the basing, I'm going to remove the stage object, which is really nice to animate cameras. I will talk about this a little bit later. But yeah, we will work with this. Yeah, as you can see, I have different groups here. I've disabled everything except HDRI and the top light, but the top light is not visible. And well, I kind of work on this in different stages. I try to create like a hierarchy of lights. So I have the general lighting, which is a little bit controlled by the HDRI, and then mostly controlled by these three lights and the fields, which are all other lights that I've put it in different places, just to fill these spaces that we are not seeing, but they obviously require lighting. But without further ado, I'm going to be showing you the different steps. So this is what we see right away with this the HDRI, which is just a sky HDRI. Actually, it's just filling a tiny bit. It's actually not filling this area here, but well, it just adds a tiny bit of brightness. But the most important part in this initial shot is the entrance lights, which are these two that are put here on top. These lights, as you can see, they start quite dim, but they turn a little bit more bright towards this part. And at this point, through like shot frame 50, we kind of just forget about them. So it's like a momentary moment for them, and then we kind of ignore them. So these are the first two lights. As you can see, they are just like affecting this whole area. So they are not really important to light the other thing. One thing that's really important, and we'll see. Let's go with these two, for example. These two lights are doing a nice job, kind of creating the silhouette of everything, which is quite dope. But of course, everything is like pitch dark here. We have no information, and that's something that I tend to avoid because I just feel like a full black image doesn't look really good. So I try to keep everything in the gray value, so we have some detail. Like for me, a pitch black image is the same as a burnt out image because you have no information. And yeah, I honestly don't like it much. So these are the first lights that are playing a big role here. And as you can see, they are just shit. Sorry, this scene is super slow because it was built in an older version of Redshift, and yeah, it's not complex because it doesn't have that many geometry, but it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with. So yeah, these two, they are just like a really long area lights, a little bit of spread, so we can control exactly how much is hitting the wall. If you put it higher, it will, like how it is, it will be a little bit more diffuse, but it's barely noticeable. If you put it like with a lower spread value, it will start to be like closer to the wall. Yeah, you can see. So this is cool because you can kind of recreate this long LED lighting that you can find in museums, or for example. And what I'm doing here, sorry, what I'm doing here, I'm excluding it from the floor. This way I can put them wherever I want, basically. And I find this is a really nice way of yeah, mimicking these light LEDs that you can see in a lot of galleries. Because otherwise, if you want to do this in a real way, you'll need to, oh shoot, this is playing. You'll need to model this. And of course, if you are going to be seeing these parts, you'll need to model it because otherwise it looks fake. But from this distance, I didn't see any reason why I should do it. I think I'm excluding the floor and I'm excluding this wall here. It's because it was creating like a different effect that I didn't want it. And then second part of this setup are the field lightings. These are meant to illuminate the parts that we are not seeing. And yeah, as I always say, it's really important to work on the parts that you don't see because that makes you feel like the space is actually a space and it's bigger and there's something else happening on the side. It's yeah, soft diffuse lighting, nothing, everything in line with the rest of the film. So these lights, for example, are not animated. Like when you go to the first frame, there's some lights that have animation. For example, the spots that are highlighting the sculptures and the entrance lights here, they are animated, but just slightly on the exposure. Nothing crazy. Like I just put it from minus 4.5 to minus 2.5 and that's it. So yeah, the lights that have a slight animation, but the other ones I decided to keep them just so we don't start at full black, you know. This is already dark enough for me. You kind of see a little bit of what's going on. The backdrop here is also animated on the sides, so it creates like a effect, like it's lighting from the center towards the bottom, the bottoms, sorry, towards the edges, towards the sides, and I think that that's a nice effect. But yeah, I wanted to keep like a bit of light overall, and also not give it all away on the first frame, so you still have some stuff to look at. Then the most important part are these spotlights, I guess, and the top lights, which I haven't spoke about yet, but you will see in a second. So these spotlights, they just have a tiny bit of a texture, and also I forgot to say that I'm using the temperature here to tint the color a little bit. You can totally do it just tweaking the color. I just prefer to do this sometimes when I'm trying to do some warmer tones. I tend to do it with the temperature because I feel it gives you realistic values of lights that you see usually, especially if you are using the lights that you could find on bulbs or LED lights that you can find around your house. So yeah, that's something that you could look for. But like, for example, the super warm light bulb that you can put in your living room is like 2700 and stuff like that. They are like set numbers, and it helps with the realism because you're not getting something that's maybe a little bit too bluish or cold or a little bit too warm. So yeah, it's a nice value. Yeah, I just did a little bit of the same. Here I decided like I'm going to put some spotlights, but I also don't want them to be like the main ones that we are going to see here in a second, because we are just meant to be adding a little bit of depth to the scene. So obviously what I decided is like, okay, if we have a bench here, maybe it's cool that if you were sitting there, you have a little bit of light. And also, for example, if you have this sculpture here that's sitting around, well, you have that, but without making it like super harsh or whatever. And yeah, I think we're fine. For example, here it's just creating a little bit more of effect. But yeah, I don't even think this is visible. I don't know. I think the scene evolved a lot, and this cube wasn't here. So at some point it was visible, but I think this one is necessary right now. And then and then just the spotlights. Yeah, to be honest, it's nothing crazy. They are animated also too, because as you might know, uh, this has a voiceover that's narrating what's happening, so they need to turn on at different timings. So I just animated a little bit of the exposure and the cone angle. I have the keyframe set for the exposure because it's sometimes I'm editing it a little bit, because when the spotlight is really tiny in terms of the angle, so the surface that it's hitting, if it's also harsh in the lighting, you'll see like a white spot. So I try to balance those two animations, because otherwise you'll end up with something that's not really very good looking. And I think this really helps a lot. Give it a go. If you animate the just the cone angle, you'll see, for example, let me remove this. You'll see that you have something that's a little bit too harsh, and yeah, it just helps to minimize that a little bit. And yeah, it's just like a really simple animation. But the thing with this scene is that the lights need to come as a sequence. So if you were to start from the beginning, not just to light the scene, because I think the process that I show you is like the good way of lighting this scene, like setting a base, then start to add detail to it, and then kind of think about how's the camera movement and what makes sense for it to follow. Like, for example, well, there's actually different ways you could totally animate this. You could start like just putting the backlights on and then start to add some fields, but it kind of depends on the hierarchy you want to create. Like, for example, if you are entering the space and you are moving through the entrance and you are turning on those lights, and at the same time you are turning on the backlights, but in a really visible way, you are losing hierarchy. So you need to space the lighting, or just if you're doing it at the same time, you need to keep one that's like more prominent or central at that moment. So as you can see, I put this into the last frame. This is not a frame that you see on the film, but it's a frame that I use for promotional purposes a lot, because I think it looks really nice. So at this stage, we are actually focusing on the sculptures, but as you can see, oh shit, sorry. I have this top light, which is animated, and it gives a really nice effect. It's like a fading light that's entering the scene, and it's like escalating. As we have this geometry here, it creates a really nice effect. And in order to do this, because I don't have I don't have a ceiling here, so I have this this light sitting here, and I had to add this light blocker, which is basically a plane that's literally blocking the light from the top light. And I just decided to do it this way because I thought it was like the simpler way I could animate like this cascading effect. At first, I don't think I have it here, but I had a cloner and I was animating it with fields, but everything was super slow, and yeah, it was giving some issues. And I thought like, yes, try to do it in the simpler way, and I just ended up animating like the depth of the lighting, and it worked quite well. So yeah, these hierarchical lights also gives you a lot of freedom in order to have different lighting setups, for example. So at the end, what you need to keep in mind is that you need to have some lights that are working by itself, and once you combine them, they basically paint the whole thing. It's exactly like painting an artwork or something like that. You have to have all the elements living together nicely, and that's why it's important to light in different steps instead of everything at the same time. I think this will help you a lot to create this hierarchy in your mind, and yeah, I think it works just really nicely. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, we have this light setup that works by itself. And now if we put the backdrop, sorry, and the stairs here, if we add these other two lights, the ones that I showed at first, it adds an extra layer of detail. And as you can see, everything is living together super nicely. And this first shot that we had here was looking super dope to me, and it's honestly it still does. But as you can see, you have another layer of depth here. And for example, if we add, well, the entrance is not going to do much because we don't see it right now, but now we add the spotlights, the basic ones. We're going to have, oh shit, what did I do? Ah, no, sorry, I added the fill. As you can see right now, it's a little bit too bright here, but keep in mind that at this stage we should be focusing like in this wall, not sorry, in this column. So bear in mind that this wasn't supposed to be like that on the film. But if you had this trouble, as you can see right now, maybe we have this issue. We have this issue in which right now the lights are not living together that nicely because these parts here are overburnt. So if for example, if you needed to do this, what you will need to do is just balance the lighting and start to put them a little bit more subtle, and that's it. It's an act of balance. Lighting is just trying to put a lot of different stuff in a way that looks seamless, so it feels natural and you don't have like something that standing out when it doesn't need to stand out, you know? So right now this is way better because this part here was obviously trying to become like the hero. You can see, obviously, as I said, you could definitely go with this lighting or whatever. In this case, I couldn't go full dark because we actually needed the light. So if you want to go full moody, you can go for it. But these kind of scenes with a lot of lights are the most complex one. So it's important also to not just try to do everything moody, because doing moody lighting might seem like the easier way of doing things, but you could really tell from a moody lighting render if the guy who is doing it knows what he's doing or not. So yeah, let's add the fill spot so you can see like the whole progression of it. Should be lighting these two parts, and as you can see, it's like again making it feel more natural. Another layer of depth, and just to finalize, we have the spots that are the heroes. And yeah, again, like right now, for example, we have an issue here because we had there's one on top, this one I guess, that's hitting the floor a little bit too much. And again, this wasn't supposed to be seen from this angle at this stage, but you could either delete it or just make it so it includes just the arcs, and you will get rid of that and you'll have a more natural look without weird spotlights or whatever. You see, everything again, it's really nicely balanced, and you end up with an image that goes from here to here. And actually, probably we can get another render of everything turned off, and just so we can see a bit fields. And let's get rid of all of these. For example, let's turn on just the entrance, and maybe we get a speed of light here. I'm not sure if we're gonna get it. Yeah, shitty speed of light. We could have like a nice progression of lighting. So for example, let's say this one is like this. As you can see right now, this looks like fucking ass because we don't have any information. But well, just to make like a kind of a progression of light, which doesn't make any sense because right here you don't have it. But well, so you can see all the different steps that were involved in creating like the final lighting, and I think it's nice to see them differentiated in different groups, so it helps organize your mind, and overall I think it makes it just easier. So yeah, I hope you guys like the lighting breakdown and found it useful, and see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.